Hi everyone, it's Mick Lebinskas here from She's Building a Robot, and I'm excited to be chatting to Marisa Warren, who's in sunny California. Hey Marisa, how you going?
Awesome. Yes, it is sunny. Another beautiful day.
We had a crazy thunderstorm here last night in Sydney, went for 2 hours with just lightning and wind, and then just disappeared. It was nuts, but it's back to a sunny day, so we're being a bit crazy here in Sydney. But Marisa, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us a bit about what you currently do in the world of women in technology?
Sure. So my organisation is called Elevacao, which is empowering women tech entrepreneurs to get pitch ready for investment funding, but more importantly, helping them to get funded. We run our programs across New York, San Francisco, Australia, and now I'm based in LA, out here as well. And it's all around building those pitch decks and getting connected to investors. So far, we've had 150 women through our program. One I'm very pleased to say is actually getting ready to IPO this year.
Fantastic.
We've had, very exciting. We've had women that have actually bootstrapped to success. So one of those is Christy Lawrence, who's now at an annual run rate of $2.5 million and started off, 18 months on her own, 18 months ago, through to, women that have had the idea and taken it to market, got funding and won TechCrunch Battlefield Australia all within 12 months. And that was Manuri from Health Match. So we have women of all backgrounds, ethnicities, ages, early 20s all the way through to late 60s, coming and having great success in their tech startup.
And what was your motivation to set up this organization?
So for me, this is a real passion of mine, sort of helping women elevate to higher levels. Now, whether it's the older sister in me, or that I've come from a family of very strong females, or whether it's being in the tech industry since literally 97, and working for some very male dominated industries or companies such as SAP, Microsoft, Workday, and just seeing that there wasn't enough women in tech and doing that. So really, there's this real passion to help more women get into tech, whether it's on the corporate side or building their own startups, but then see success as well.
That's amazing. So I know I'm a big supporter here, but I'm going to dig in a little bit, because certainly in some of the forums that you and I are a part of, there's been some debate around this. Now there's a lot of venture capital around. There's a good market for this. It's a pretty known path. So why is there a requirement for additional support for women, and why should we be pushing so hard to get more women into tech?
It's really interesting. So I've been looking at this a lot since I launched Elevacao back in 2015 now in New York. And at that time, really looking into why do we have so few women in tech? And why do we struggle even sort of raising up the ranks all the way up to board level? I think sort of traditionally we've seen, women's role has really evolved over the, even over the last 30 years. My mother, growing up, her mother would say, okay, there's two career options for you. Either you become a housewife or a nun. She was going to an all-girls Catholic school education growing up, and that is, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, of all places. So even at that, my mum's now 78. Even at that time, it was sort of, those are the, the career paths. My mum said, no, bugger that. I want to be a model. So she bucked this as a trend, and she actually then ended up she did some modeling, but then she ended up getting into politics. So I think, for me, coming from a very strong female background, I mean, that helped. But so you have that element of the societal shift where it's been changing, where you've had the woman's role in the home, then you've had women getting into the workplace, and we're trying to figure out, how we fit. And because it's been such a male-dominated domain for all of these years, and then you have women coming in, and we haven't really formed those networks of power from a women's perspective. So you would have heard things like, the boys' club. So there's, you guys are really great at helping each other progress up the corporate ladder. We haven't had that so-called sort of, women's club type thing within the corporate world. So we haven't been as good as, helping each other up the ladder. And within our own successes. So I think there are some elements there from a societal perspective that has certainly influenced women, in business, but then also specifically tech. The other element that I see is, and this is very much a stereotype that has been driven from Silicon Valley and then amplified by Hollywood, where you have that stereotypical white dude, no offense, Mick, white dude in his early 20s that's a coder and a nerd, and he's the one that, goes on to build a successful tech startup, and that's what you deem as what success looks like. So for me, growing up, before I got into tech, I always viewed it as it's just for the nerdy boys. Right? Why would I want to get into tech? So I think there are a number of factors that influence our thinking of where we are today with women in tech. Oh, Mick, sorry, I can't hear you.
I was muting myself I was making a couple of notes here. Yeah, it feels like there's a triple challenge to what you're working on here. One is just the overall women in the workplace, which even though people in my generation might think that's just a normal thing, I think it's really important to look back generations to realize that in just 3 generations, we've gone from not in the workplace very much at all to in the workplace a bit to in the workplace a lot, but we still have room to go just generally in terms of women in work. And I'll be, most of my meetings and work interactions are male dominated still, depending on their kind. But then you have another thing in tech, which is started out actually heavily women based in terms of some coding, and we've seen that with movies like Hidden Figures, etc. But then became very more male dominated. And then there's the next layer is actually the investment side, which is another layer which has been heavily male dominated. And I think the people massively underestimate the momentum that all has created, and why it's hard to push back against it. And when people say, oh, all investment and hiring is based on merit, so, sorry, I have to do things based on merit, that they don't recognize that there is, 1,000 years of a momentum which has pushed that to influence what that merit actually means. And merit is not merit. Let's be really clear about that. So it's why you're battling 3 fronts. It's a hard thing, not just women in the workforce, not just women in tech, but women getting capital in tech in the workforce. So thank you for doing that. Can you tell us about the progress you've made? Like, is it, guessing it's hard work, but how's the progress going?
It's really interesting when we talk to the women that come through our program, and we ask them why do you want to come through the Elevacao program? What is it that's important to you? Every single one of them say that they want to build confidence in pitching their business to investors, and then securing funding. But it's more so that confidence factor. Because I think historically it's been so challenging for women to rise up the ranks for some of the reasons that we've talked about, but then also from a funding perspective to get funding, they want to make sure that they're presenting a perfect solutions business to investors. They want to make sure that they get it 100% right. And for them, when they know what investors want to hear, that in turn helps them build the confidence. So we've seen women. So, for example, here in New York, a lady, she was a vice president of Bank of America. She had been on the campaign trail with Hillary Clinton, and she was, she said to me, Marisa, the idea of pitching my tech startup to investors just scares me to like no end. I'm fearful of that scrutiny. Now, I think it's, part of that is just our perception of what, Shark Tank hasn't done us any favors there. I think around, when you pitch to investors, that it's going to be like a Shark Tank session. So we help.
I totally agree with you. I just think I just hate that model of that they're sitting on a pedestal there and you come in this den and you're like pleading to them and they get to decide no, yes, like it's and
that's not the reality. We help our women to say, look, you are the prize, not the investor. You are the one that's going to make the investors, a whole lot of money. So it's not being arrogant, but it's being realistic around and recognizing where the power actually is versus the perceived power. Yep. So and with that, and going through our program and helping them to understand what that process looks like to getting funding, all of a sudden they go, right, now I get it. But then we also give them, going through that, permission to think big. Because I think too often then some of our classic female traits, and I hate generalizing and stereotyping, but we do see it, females do tend to generally, think a bit small for that fear of failure because we want to be seen as doing things perfect. So it's like, no, you can think big, you can put it out there and go for it. We always talk at Elevacao about world domination. Are we going to achieve it? I hope so. If we don't, will I view it as a failure? No. Because, we're trying everything that we can to get there, but it's just, being able to just change that thinking a bit, to think, and to allow yourself to. And as soon as we say that to them, there's sort of, you see them relax. They're like, oh, I can do it. But at the other side, if they just want to have more of what we deem as a lifestyle business and not a VC backable type, that is perfectly fine as well. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just knowing what type of company you want to build, and if you want to build $1 billion business, you absolutely can.
Fantastic. And from the there's a saying that it takes a village to build a tech company. You talk about the infrastructure around supporting white males from Stanford and Harvard to build their startups, and that is, I guess, the most trodden path. And investment is run on a lagging indicator, so that is an issue. But can you tell me a bit about how the infrastructure is improving in terms of angels and VCs and that support network? How's that going?
It's getting better. If I look at the two markets that I operate in the US and Australia, it's getting better in terms of the awareness that we need particularly for women in tech. So you'll have investors that typically fall into the two categories. Either they get it or they just don't. So we focus on the ones that get it. They've looked at their portfolio mix, and they've seen, quite often, the female founded businesses are outperforming the male founded businesses, or the ones that have greater diversity at the founding team or board level, outperforming, the male only type businesses. So they go, okay, well, my portfolio is doing better with diversity. I want to do more in that space. So we are seeing more of that. There's a lot more conversation around it, but there's still a ways to go. If you look at women founded businesses get just what is it? I think now it's etched up to 2.8% of funding globally. It's a couple of, or not even a percentage point over the last year. We are seeing a lot more funds, dedicated funds, opening up as well. I'm seeing that here in LA as well, that are funding female-led businesses,
Yep.
which is fantastic. Need that. We need more of that in Australia. I think there is there was one, I think,
Yeah.
which is an angel network, but there's that is prime for for Australia, because I think the US is leading it here from that female funds perspective.
And you meant to touch on something there in terms of diverse groups build better companies, and women-led companies have a lot of strengths. You must see that a lot of them come through, and you've obviously seen a lot of other businesses. Can you talk to some of those strengths and some of those the big benefits of having much stronger gender balance and diversity as a part of your company?
Absolutely. There's a couple of different things. If I have a look at our target demographic, for example, yes, we are just women, but we go from early 20s, or we've accepted women that are younger than that, but that's roughly where they fall. Early 20s to late 60s, women from all ethnicities, backgrounds, income levels as well. Some of them, only on 20 grand a year type thing have come through our program. So, but that's because for us, our marketing messaging really appeals for all of those types of different founders. But important as well, so does our organisation. So I've been very, very focused on making sure that we have a 50-50 split first from a gender perspective on experts that we get involved in our program. So yes, we're just helping the females, and there will be, I do say, there are in every cohort male co-founders, obviously, and we do absolutely get them involved at certain points during the program. The emphasis is on our women, though, to help build their confidence, and then they bring that back to the team, and that helps strengthen the relationship with their male co-founders. So our experts, we make sure that at the first lens is that 50-50 male female. Then we also have a look at different investors, from angel investors to VCs, corporate executives, successful founders, different age groups, different backgrounds. So they're representative as well of our target demographic. So that's what we're trying to, the people that we have in our organisation now and our experts represent, the founders that we're trying to bring into the program.
Well, okay, that's fantastic. And what do you see is coming up next? Like, in terms of you've done a lot to build these things out and support. What's the next major thing we need to work on to help lay down the path for more success in this area?
We need to continue the dialogue, obviously, but I'm all for action. There becomes a certain point where like, okay, enough talking about this. What are we actually going to do? And the first thing I touched on that just before is we actually need some A-level VC funds that are dedicated to investing in women, particularly in Australia, where they have a couple of $100 million, to be able to spend on investing, not the micro type funds. We need some serious cash getting into, helping to fund these women, and at an early stage. So if I have a look at Australia versus the US, the Australian investment market being much more conservative than the US is tightening up a bit, but in that, that early stage pre-seed, needing to see more funding come in, especially for the female businesses. The number of times that I've seen females not back for funding, pre-seed, pre-revenue versus male counterparts, because of that some of those unconscious biases that the investors don't think that they'll be able to take the business where they need to versus their male counterparts. So we need more, focused in on that early stage, because when you help women that early stage, they will outperform just, off the charts. And we've seen that. You give them that confidence and help early on, they take that and they fly. So that's definitely that investment, and just more programs that are helping women throughout the life cycle of their startup journey. Elevacao is great at that early stage, but we're only one part of, their journey. Then it's who do they go to after us, so they can continue that. You always need a coach, a mentor in your business, just like you do for sports.
Yep.
You have a coach mentor to excel at sports. You need that in your business as well. So what are the different programs that are available to be able to, at each sort of step of the business journey, that are geared then as well for females and diverse founders.
That's fantastic. Is there any particular story that you think encapsulates, a good example of facing that battle, working through, and getting excitedly through to the other side?
Facing that battle.
You mentioned that one of your companies is approaching an IPO, and some other people getting good revenue. But is there one that sort of you think can give some inspiration to some young women who are maybe thinking about being entrepreneurs and growing out?
I think, I've got lots of great stories from our founders and then my personal career. If I can sort of take it up a level, and this is some of my own core beliefs and philosophies coming through, but imparted from my parents as well, and actually my grandparents. So when you're going through life, there are going to be ups and downs. That is the nature of life. It's the matter of how you actually navigate through those and how you come out the other end that counts. So you absolutely go through, celebrate your successes and your wins. Big believer in that. You have to do that. When you hit low points in your life, very much I'm coming into that, okay, go into that problem solving mode. How can I get myself out of this situation? What is my end goal? What am I working towards? And how do I get there? At the same time, you're looking at that and you're saying, part of that is there's always a silver lining. So if you remember that, there is always a silver lining. It doesn't matter how crappy the situation might be. I've been in plenty of myself, and I'm just like, why is this happening to me? And you just keep remember there's always a silver lining, and I will come out the other end, from a positive perspective. And that always happens, without a doubt. You find a way to overcome the hurdles, and the number of times where it's happened, where the success on the other side has been bigger than I could ever have imagined. So it's just having that faith that it is going to be okay. And that's just something that you need to practice. Even having it, I do like little positive affirmation statements. There's always a silver lining. Stick them on your mirror in your bathroom. Have them on your laptop or on your iPhone on the home screen. Those little positive to help you get through those situations. And I think so for me that's helped me in my life. But then if I see all the women that have had the successes through our programs and also how they've overcome adversity. It's that drawing that strength of character and being able to override it, that's where they've been able to have the success.
It's interesting, something you raised before, which I think extends onto that. And I'm in no way qualified to talk about this in detail other than through observation, but I'm a dad of one son and two daughters. And I really see in terms of the playground attitude of that the boys are sort of encouraged to fall over in the dirt and hurt themselves, and girls are more protected. We spoke briefly before about the role of parents in supporting young women in their journey into entrepreneurship, and what you're talking about there in terms of that the ability to experiment, fail, learn from it, and move on is a critical part of all. No business gets it right first time. Is there any part of your program where you either have to confront the challenges that women had in terms of their parenting and how they're raised, because that's obviously a big influence on them? I'm sure there's some parents who like yours were, sounds like to you and my word to mine in terms of wonderful influences, but it's just not always the case, especially I think for women. Do you see that as something that is important and hopefully improving?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The environment that you grow up in has a big impact on how you view life and how you get through adversities, and also your view on the gender roles and how they play out in your home, in working life as well. So yes, with my parents, both highly educated, mum in politics, my father's an architect, and they throughout my sisters and my life shared the parenting role. So at times when, Parliament was sitting or mum was in election mode, dad would be the primary carer. Dad would be there cooking dinners, looking after us, helping us with our homework. I think earlier on in our lives, mum was the primary carer. So they very much shared that throughout our lives, but then also, which has had a big influence on how I view gender within the home and then also out in the workplace. There's something that we have been looking at about within our programs and getting some more of that self-awareness, founder health, happiness, etc., and embedding that more into our program. We only touch on that. We don't go deep enough at this stage, unfortunately. It's difficult to undo a lifetime of programming. So you can give people some tips and tricks, in which we do going through our program, but we want to do more on that. So that's, so that is certainly something that's on our radar for later this year, next year.
Okay, it's really interesting you talk about your dad, and I wonder how much that situation influenced him and who he became as a dad, but also as a man, but also having that visibility to just the time with a man. I think a lot of times, based on, again, the work life, previous families, the dad worked all day and you had time with your mum, and you maybe saw your dad in the morning, in the afternoon, on weekends, but the interaction with dads, I think, is changing, which hopefully I think will change society in a positive way over a long period of time. And I know we're only talking about developed, and I know we're not talking about everyone, but it seems like at least that's a positive trend, and hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I agree. And just something else that Dad used to do with us, because sorry, he wanted 6 kids. Mum said, no, I'm stopping at 2.
Okay.
And just had 2 girls. So, he always wanted a boy. That's a lot of men do. I mean, that's, that's just, so we would do things like work on the car with him. We would, roll turf in the front. He didn't have this, no, this is a girl's activity and this is a boy's activity. It's like, girls, you're doing this. He'd take us out. He gets on the surf ski out. He still gets on the surf ski out there, surfing in Byron. And he'd take us out and do that. And so they wouldn't ever say, no, you can't do that because it's deemed as a boy's activity, or only pushing us towards girls type activity. So that definitely had a big influence on my sister and I.
Yeah, that's a huge one, and I think it goes to the fact that there's no panacea, I'll say, for this. Like in terms of gender equality, I think we need hundreds of initiatives, and we need them for over a longer period of time, and we need to work on all fronts, because it's a big one. And I'm so confident the world will be a better place. And if some men are kicking up a stink about it, being that they're slightly less advantaged, I won't even say they're disadvantaged, I'm saying they're slightly less advantaged. And I just totally recognize that I'm a middle-aged, white, relatively wealthy, straight guy. I won the diversity lottery, privilege lottery. But you know what, I just don't get defensive about it. Partly it's easy because I've got a mum, a wife, and 2 daughters and a son. I want them all to grow up in a place where this is not even a conversation. I don't know if we'll get there in 10 years, but I really hope we'll be there in 20 years.
Yeah. And I think sometimes some of the fear from those type of people come from a scarcity mindset. They think there's only limited number of funds or seats at the executive table or etc. If you change that into an abundance mindset, then that fear disappears very quickly. Yep. So it's, hopefully if we can get to more of that in society, that abundance type mindset and attitude, then that can help as well. That's some of my nice, positive, optimistic.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, it's a great point to finish this up on. I think you're doing some incredible work helping women progress through the entrepreneurship journey. It's a hard one for anyone. I've peak privilege, and I still find it very challenging. And I'm not the best entrepreneur in the world, but I've always loved my journey, loved the learnings it gave me. But totally get and understand that I've been very lucky in many, many ways. I did get support from my parents, and I think very realistic about the work to be done, and let's not get complacent on that, but very optimistic about that we're going in the right direction. There's a lot of good people fighting the fight, and Marisa, I really appreciate you sharing the stories and comments today, and people can head over to Elevacao and check out your programs. I'll include some links in the video blog and podcast notes, so if everyone can go check out Marisa. Is there anything particular you want to share of an initiative or events coming up, or any you'd like to point people towards?
Well, people are more than welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well, if they want. We haven't yet published our programs for this year, but by all means, reach out to me on LinkedIn or Facebook, and ask to be added to the email distribution list, or even if you wanted to have a chat, more than happy. I do plenty of free mentoring chats as well. So happy to help the next generation as much as I can.
Oh, that's great. I'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile, then this show. And again, Marisa, it's great to chat to you. Thanks so much for sharing. Enjoy that LA sunshine, even though it's only spring there, right? So that's some nice weather. That's why you're in LA and not San Francisco, of course. So one of the reasons. Yes. But yes. Great to chat. Thank you so much for sharing, and best of luck with all the programs for this year.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.